What would you do if the person you trusted most, your closest friend, your right-hand confidant, suddenly tried to kill you? Imagine running for your life through the dark streets of Lekki, Nigeria, with danger chasing you at every turn. The betrayal is so close it cuts deeper than any weapon. And the only person standing between you and certain death is someone you never expected, a poor maid, unnoticed by the world, yet braver than anyone you know. Tonight, you will witness a story of greed, trust, and betrayal unlike anything you've ever seen. A billionaire's life hangs by a thread. A servant's courage becomes the difference between life and death. And every step they take, every choice they make, could be their last. Stay with us, because in this story, nothing is as it seems. The hunt begins, the stakes are deadly, and the truth is shocking. Will loyalty survive when greed strikes at the heart? Or will betrayal claim everything? Welcome to Spiritual African Stories, the home of powerful folk tales, ancient mysteries, and unforgettable lessons passed down through generations. Here, we bring you emotional journeys, supernatural encounters, and deeply spiritual stories inspired by real African traditions and culture. If you love breathtaking storytelling, moral lessons, and cinematic African narratives, then you are in the right place. Make sure you like this video, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new episode from Spiritual African Stories. Your support helps these timeless tales live on. The night Lekki forgot how to breathe began like any other. At least, that was what Princess Nwankwo thought as she walked through the quiet courtyard of the Obiora mansion, the most intimidating house on Orchid Road, Lekki Phase 2. She moved carefully, her hands wrapped around a silver tray still warm from the evening tea she had just served. Her steps were light, almost silent, as though she had learned long ago that being noticed by the rich rarely brought good news for the poor. But that night, something felt wrong. The wind carried a strange heaviness, and the palm trees around the mansion swayed like uneasy witnesses. Even the usually bright automated lights lining the marble walkway flickered as she passed. Princess paused, staring upward. A faint shiver crossed her shoulders. Why does this night feel different? She shook the thought away. Maybe she was simply tired. Working from dawn to midnight every day could exhaust even the strongest spirit, and she had been in this house for only 4 months. Yet she felt like she had aged for years. Inside the mansion, laughter drifted from the upper lounge. Deep voices, men celebrating, business partners enjoying their weekend night. Princess recognized the dominant voice immediately. Her boss, Chinedu Obiora, the 34-year-old tech billionaire who owned half the properties on that street. He was charismatic, brilliant, generous to those he trusted, and too trusting of those he shouldn't. At his side tonight, as always, was his childhood friend, Obinna Okafor. Tall, charming, expensive in taste, and dangerous in silence. If loyalty had a weakness, Obinna was the reason. Princess paused behind a corner and listened. To partnership, Chinedu said, his warm voice ringing like a man at peace with the world. To partnership, Obinna echoed, though something in his tone felt sharp, like a knife smiling before it cuts. Princess frowned. For weeks, she had sensed tension around Obinna, secret phone calls, late-night meetings, sudden disappearances whenever Chinedu wasn't watching. There were whispers among the staff, too. Something about large, untraceable transactions. Something about a major contract Chinedu won recently. But one rumor stuck in Prince's head like a thorn. The contract Obinna wanted. Chinedu got it instead. Princess had no business thinking about the affairs of billionaires, yet her instincts rarely failed her. It was the same instinct that had kept her alive during the hardest days in Onitsha, the streets she escaped after losing her parents. She survived by understanding danger before it arrived. And tonight, danger was in this house. She continued walking, intending to return to the kitchen. But as she approached the staircase, she heard something. A whisper, faint but urgent. Are you sure this is safe? It was Obinna's voice. Princess stopped. A second voice responded, one she did not recognize. As long as he drinks it tonight, everything goes as planned. Her breath caught. A third voice joined in. By morning, it will look like heart failure. No one will question anything. Princess' fingers tightened around the tray. Her heartbeat echoed in her ears. Slowly, she leaned toward the half-closed door where the voices came from. the private lounge beside the main staircase. She didn't want to eavesdrop. She didn't want trouble. But something inside her refused to walk away. Through the tiny opening, she saw Obinna standing with two men dressed in black. One held a small glass vial filled with a clear liquid. The other held a brown leather envelope. Obinna's expression was cold, focused, determined. Once Chinedu is gone, Obinna said quietly, the board will have no choice but to hand everything over to me. The estate, the shares, all of it. Prince's legs nearly gave way. They are planning to eliminate him? Tonight? Her breath trembled. She inched backward, trying not to make a sound, but her elbow grazed the wall. Tap. The sound was soft, too soft for Chinedu to hear upstairs, but loud enough for Obinna's head to snap toward the door. Princess froze. His eyes narrowed. Did you hear that? One of the men whispered. Princess felt the world freeze around her. She pulled back silently, hiding behind the large ceramic flower vase near the staircase. Obinna moved toward the door. One step, another step. Princess held her breath. But suddenly Chinedu's loud laughter echoed from the upstairs lounge again. Obinna, where did you disappear to? Come and finish this drink, my brother. Obinna paused, torn between suspicion and the need to maintain his disguise. He exhaled. I'm coming, he replied, turning away from the door. Princess pressed a hand over her mouth as relief washed through her. But she knew that relief wouldn't last. Not after what she had just heard. She waited until Obinna and the two men walked out of the lounge and headed upstairs before running toward the kitchen corridor. Her breath was unsteady. Her palms were cold. What am I supposed to do? If I speak, they will silence me. If I stay quiet, Chinedu will die. Her conscience twisted painfully. Princess had grown attached to Chinedu in a way she refused to admit. Not romantically. She knew her place, but respectfully. He treated her with unexpected kindness. He greeted her by name. He never shouted, never insulted her, never treated her like she was invisible. He trusted people, and the people he trusted wanted him dead. She reached the kitchen, where Nneka, the head maid, was washing plates. Nneka looked up. You look pale, she said. Princess shook her head. I'm fine. But she wasn't. She waited until Nneka left before placing the tray on the counter and gripping its edge. Her decision was forming, sharp and dangerous. She had to save him, even if it destroyed her life, even if Obinna came for her next. Princess stood motionless in the kitchen, her heart pounding so loudly she wondered if the walls could hear it. She swallowed hard and closed her eyes, trying to steady her breath. Her mind raced with the image of the vial, the whispered promise of heart failure, and Obinna's calm voice as he plotted the end of the very man who called him brother. She forced herself to move. Her legs felt numb as she walked toward the sink and turned on the tap, pretending to wash her hands. The cold water did nothing to calm her. She had only minutes, maybe less. Obinna could slip the poison into Chinedu's drink at any moment. And once he did, there would be no going back. Princess knew she couldn't run to the police. She had no evidence. No one would believe a poor maid over a billionaire's respectable best friend. Worse still, she would endanger herself, Nneka, and everyone who lived downstairs in the staff quarters. Her only chance was to reach Chinedu before the drink did. But how? She stared at the row of gleaming glasses on the counter, her mind working quickly, desperately. Then an idea came, bold, reckless, nearly impossible. But it was the only way. She wiped her hands on her apron and hurried out of the kitchen, careful not to draw attention. As she moved through the long corridor, she heard echoes of clinking glasses and laughter drifting from the upper lounge. Chinedu's voice was still cheerful, unaware of the storm forming around him. She prayed she would not be too late. The marble staircase spiraled upward like a path she was never meant to climb. Staff rarely went beyond the second floor unless called. But tonight, she had no choice. She clutched the railing as she ascended quietly. The sound of men talking grew louder. Another toast, Chinedu said. Tonight is for celebration. Princess's stomach twisted. She reached the top of the stairs and stood just outside the lounge. The massive sliding glass doors were partially open, revealing the brightly lit room where the three men sat. Obinna was closest to the drink tray. He lifted the bottle of champagne with a smooth, practiced motion. His eyes glinted with cold intent as he poured into Chinedu's glass. Princess felt a surge of panic. He's doing it now. She had to act. Her hands trembled as she stepped forward. Chinedu looked up as she entered. Princess? Is everything okay? Obina's head snapped toward her. His eyes hardened, suspicious and mildly irritated. Her voice caught in her throat, but she forced herself to speak. Sir, the kitchen asked me to replace these glasses. They said the ones on the tray were not properly polished. It was a lie. A risky, thin, fragile lie. Obina narrowed his eyes, studying her carefully. Since when does the kitchen ask for glasses to be changed during a celebration? Princess felt the floor tilt beneath her. Her palms grew slick. Think. She lowered her gaze respectfully. Sir, I only came because Nneka insisted. She said Madam called earlier and requested everything be perfect for the guests. Chinedu shrugged. That sounds like something she would say. Obina didn't look convinced. He stepped forward slightly, studying her face, searching for cracks in her story. Princess swallowed hard, keeping her expression steady. Chinedu waved his hand dismissively. It's fine. Bring the new glasses. Princess moved to the tray quickly. Her heart nearly stopped when she realized the poison glass was the one directly in front of Chinedu. She reached for it, but Obina's hand shot out and grabbed her wrist gently, too gently. There is no need, he said softly, though his eyes were steel. This glass is perfectly fine. Princess felt her throat tighten. Her fingers trembled beneath his grip. Princess picked up the poisoned glass, praying her hand would not shake, and placed it on the replacement tray she had carried up. She replaced it with a clean glass and poured fresh champagne. She stepped back quickly. Obina's eyes followed her with deadly calculation. But he said nothing. Chinedu lifted the new glass, smiling. Now we can toast properly. Obina raised his glass too, though his jaw was tight. To loyalty, Chinedu said. A flicker of shadow crossed Obina's face. To success, one of the business partners added. They all drank. Except Obina. Princess noticed it instantly. He lifted the glass to his lips, but didn't drink. He only watched Chinedu. Watched and waited. When nothing happened, when Chinedu remained perfectly fine, Obina's eyes flicked back to the tray where Princess had placed the poisoned glass. Realization dawned, and his gaze sharpened with lethal intent. Princess bowed quickly. Excuse me, sirs. She turned to leave. Her heart beat so fast she feared she might collapse on the stairs. The moment she reached the lower landing, she released a shaky breath. But the relief did not last. Behind her, footsteps followed. Slow, controlled, deliberate. Her blood turned cold. She didn't need to look back to know whose footsteps they were. Obina. He had left the lounge, and he was coming straight for her. Princess hurried into the corridor, trying to appear calm, but her fingers trembled as she gripped her apron. She rounded a corner, but Obina's voice stopped her. Princess. Her entire body stiffened. She turned slowly. Obina stood at the end of the hallway, his expression unreadable. His face was relaxed, too relaxed. But his eyes were deadly. Follow me, he said quietly. Princess felt her pulse throb in her ears. She wanted to run, but she forced her feet to move. She followed him into the dim study room beside the guest hallway. He closed the door behind them. Silence. He stepped closer to her until she could feel his breath. You removed the glass. It wasn't a question. Princess looked down. I only. Look at me, Obina said softly. She looked up. A cold smile touched his lips. You think I didn't notice? Her breath hitched. He leaned closer, his voice barely above a whisper. Whatever you think you know, forget it. He stepped even closer, his face inches from hers. Because if you don't. He gently touched her chin, tilting it upward. No one will ever find you. Princess felt tears sting her eyes. She nodded quickly. Obina smiled, a smile that held no warmth. Good girl. He turned away and walked toward the door. But before he left, he paused. Do not interfere again. The door clicked shut behind him. Princess collapsed into the nearest chair, her breath breaking. She pressed her trembling hands against her face. She knew now. Obina would not stop. And she had only bought Chinedu a few hours of life, maybe less. This was only the beginning. Princess remained seated in the dim study room long after Obina's footsteps faded. Her entire body trembled, as though fear had burrowed into her bones. The room felt colder, the shadows sharper. She clasped her hands together, pressing her trembling fingers against her forehead, fighting the urge to cry. She had done something reckless, something dangerous. something that had placed her directly in the path of a man who had no conscience left. But even as fear threatened to swallow her, she knew she could not give up. Obinna would try again. Maybe tonight. Maybe this very hour. Chinedu had no idea he was drinking with a snake coiled at his table. Princess rose slowly, wiped her tears with the back of her hand, and inhaled deeply. She needed a plan. Something that didn't involve direct confrontation, and something that wouldn't get her killed. She stepped out of the study and walked down the corridor toward the staff staircase. The air was tense, as though the house itself sensed the danger within its walls. Downstairs, she found Nneka in the laundry room sorting freshly pressed shirts. Nneka looked up immediately. "You're shaking. What happened?" Princess attempted a smile, but her lips refused to form one. I almost slipped on the stairs. It frightened me." Nneka frowned. You should be careful. These rich people's houses are not a place to break your leg." Princess nodded faintly. But even as she spoke to Nneka, her mind kept replaying Obinna's words. "If you don't forget, no one will find you." She shivered. She couldn't rely on anyone downstairs. They would panic. They would ask questions she couldn't answer. And even if she told them, what could they do? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. The responsibility rested on her shoulders alone. And failure meant Chinedu's death. Princess waited until she was alone again before returning to the kitchen. The house had servants, but the late hour meant only two were still working, and neither paid attention to her as she moved around. She took a deep breath and leaned against the counter, thinking, I need to stay close to him. I need to find out when Obinna plans to strike again. I need to prevent it from happening. But how? Chinedu wasn't the type of man she could casually approach and warn about his own friend. If she tried to tell him that Obinna was plotting against him, he would laugh. Or worse, Obinna would find a way to twist the situation until she became the villain. Princess covered her face with her hands. This was the most impossible situation she had ever faced. Then she heard footsteps, confident, steady, approaching the kitchen. Her heart stopped. But it wasn't Obinna. It was Chinedu. He stepped into the kitchen, still wearing the elegant black suit from the evening's celebration. His expression softened when he saw her. Princess, he said warmly, why are you still working at this hour? You should rest. She straightened quickly. I'm finishing up, sir. He nodded and stepped closer, leaning gently against the counter beside her. You've been looking pale tonight. Did something happen? Her throat tightened. She could tell him everything right now. She could save his life right here. But she saw Obinna's face in her mind. His warning. His eyes filled with cold promise. If she spoke without proof, Obinna would destroy her before the night ended. So she simply shook her head. I'm only tired, sir. Chinedu studied her for a moment, as if sensing the lie beneath her calm voice. But he didn't push. Instead, he smiled. Princess, you have been one of the most hard-working additions to this house. I appreciate you. Her eyes stung with emotion she refused to show. Thank you, sir. He nodded toward the staff corridor. Go and rest. The night is long enough already. She forced a smile. I will, sir. Chinedu turned and walked away, his footsteps fading into the distance. Princess remained where she stood, swallowing the lump in her throat. He had no idea how close he had come to death. No idea that the poison meant for him sat quietly in the kitchen bin where she had thrown it. No idea that the friend he trusted with his life had just tried to end it. Princess felt a surge of protectiveness she hadn't expected. She wasn't a warrior. She wasn't a spy. She wasn't a hero. She was just a maid. But tonight, she was the only shield Chinedu had. Later that night, the mansion grew quieter. The guests had left, the lights dimmed, and most of the staff retreated to their rooms. Princess lay on her small bed in the staff quarters, staring up at the ceiling. Sleep refused to come. Her mind refused to rest. She kept replaying Obinna's expression in the hallway, the way he looked at her, as if she were already a ghost. She turned to her side, hugging her pillow close. But then she heard it. A sound. A faint click from the outer gate. Too deliberate to be the wind. She sat up instantly, heart pounding. Another sound followed, the soft creak of footsteps on gravel. Princess moved quickly to the small window beside her bed and peered through it. Two dark figures slipped into the compound, closing the gate quietly behind them. Her breath caught. They weren't staff. They weren't guests. They were the same two men who had been with Obinna earlier. The assassins. Princess's hands clutched the window frame. Obina is trying again tonight. Her eyes widened with terror. The men moved swiftly toward the back of the mansion, staying close to the shadows. With one horrifying realization, her stomach twisted. They were heading toward Chinedu's private bedroom wing. She gasped soundlessly. Obina was not taking chances anymore. If poison failed, he would use something more direct. Something silent. Something final. Princess scrambled to her feet. She couldn't think. She couldn't breathe. She ran out of the staff quarters, her bare feet barely touching the ground. The night air bit at her skin, but she didn't feel it. She moved like a shadow across the courtyard, keeping to the darkest corners. Her heart hammered loudly, too loudly. She reached the side of the mansion and pressed herself against the cold wall, peeking around the corner. The two men were already climbing the steps to the balcony outside Chinedu's bedroom. Princess felt time slipping away. She had seconds. Seconds before Chinedu died. She had no weapon, no plan, no allies. Just courage she didn't know she possessed. She swallowed hard and began to run toward the mansion entrance. Whatever happened tonight, she told herself one thing. She would not let him die, not while she still breathed. Princess reached the grand back entrance just as the two intruders slipped over the balcony railing. Their movements were silent, practiced, and chillingly efficient. She pressed herself against the wall, her palms sweating so much she could hardly keep hold of the railing beside her. A warm breeze rustled the flowering shrubs along the walkway, but nothing could mask the dread tightening in her chest. Every instinct screamed at her to run back to the safety of the staff quarters, to pretend she hadn't seen anything. But Chinedu's life hung in the balance. Steeling herself, she crept toward the base of the balcony stairs. Each step she took felt like walking on fragile glass. Her breath hitched as she reached the bottom and glanced up. The assassins were already at Chinedu's sliding bedroom door, attempting to force the latch silently. Princess's heart tightened painfully. She had to warn him. Now, she sprinted around to the front entrance instead, the only path she could take without being seen. The enormous wooden door loomed ahead, locked from the inside at this hour. She turned the handle anyway. Locked. Her pulse spiked. She looked around frantically and spotted a gardener's tool cart under the steps. A long metal rod stuck out of one of the buckets. She grabbed it, jammed it into the space between the door and the frame, and pulled hard. The rod slipped. She pulled again. Still nothing. Desperation surged through her. She braced her foot against the bottom plank, using every ounce of strength she had. A sudden cracking sound split the silence. The latch inside gave way. The door swung inward violently, sending her stumbling. She caught herself against the wall. No time to think. She dashed into the mansion, her bare feet pounding across the polished marble. She ran past the dining hall, past the silent chandeliers, past the staircase she had cleaned 100 times. She reached the hallway that led to Chinedu's bedroom wing. Then, a shadow moved. Princess froze. One of the assassins was standing in the hallway. He wasn't masked, but his expression was cold and empty. A small curved blade glinted in his hand as he looked at her. His eyes narrowed. He recognized her. Princess gasped and turned to run, but he was fast, much faster. His footsteps thundered behind her, echoing through the long hallway like drums of doom. She sprinted around a corner, her heart tearing in her chest, praying for a miracle. The attacker lunged. Princess grabbed the first thing she saw, a mop bucket propped against the wall, and flung it behind her. Water splashed across the tiles. The man's foot slipped. He crashed hard onto the floor with a sharp grunt. Princess didn't wait to see if he would rise. She ran toward Chinedu's bedroom with all the strength her legs could muster. She reached the balcony hallway and froze as she saw the second assassin inside the room through the transparent glass door. Chinedu was asleep. Not just asleep, deeply asleep, completely unaware. Princess's pulse went wild. She burst through the balcony door with a loud crash. The assassin jerked around, startled. Chinedu's eyes flew open, disoriented. The man lunged toward the bed, knife raised. Princess screamed. "Sir, get up." Chinedu rolled instinctively just as the blade slashed down where he had been lying. The sheets tore beneath the knife. The room exploded into chaos. Princess grabbed the nearest object, a heavy bedside lamp, and hurled it with all her strength. It struck the attacker's shoulder, causing him to stumble. The assassin turned toward her, fury burning in his eyes. He lunged. Princess backed away frantically, her hands scrambling behind her for anything she could use as a shield. Her fingers brushed the cold metal of a decorative floor vase. She grabbed it and swung. The vase slammed into the man's arm with a sickening crack. He growled in pain, but he didn't stop. He raised the knife again. Chinedu threw himself at the man from behind, tackling him to the floor. The two men crashed into the nightstand, knocking over books and a glass of water. Princess ran to the door just as the first assassin, the one who had slipped, appeared again, limping but furious. She tried to slam the door shut. He shoved his boot between the frame and the hinge, forcing it open. Princess pushed with all her might, her muscles burning. The man shoved harder. Then Chinedu, still wrestling the other attacker, yelled, "Princess, run!" But she didn't. She threw her body against the door. The assassin forced his way in anyway, sending her crashing backward to the floor. Before he could strike, Chinedu grabbed the decorative vase from the ground and hurled it at him. The vase struck the man squarely in the temple. He collapsed instantly. The room went still. The second attacker, seeing his partner fall, staggered to his feet and fled out the balcony door and into the night. Silence filled the room, broken only by the sound of labored breathing. Chinedu leaned heavily against the broken nightstand, staring at Princess with disbelief and shock. "You," he murmured breathlessly. "You saved my life." Princess sat on the floor, shaking violently from fear and adrenaline. I saw them coming," she whispered. "I had to warn you." Chinedu moved toward her, extending his hand. She hesitated, then took it. His hand was warm, steady. "I don't understand," he said, voice trembling. "How did they get inside? Who sent them?" Princess looked away, tears forming in her eyes. She wanted to speak. She wanted to point at the only man capable of orchestrating something this cold. But Obina's warning echoed in her head. "No one will ever find you." She wiped her eyes. I don't know, sir." Chinedu exhaled shakily. "Thank you, Princess. You were braver than anyone I've ever met." Princess lowered her head. But as she looked toward the balcony, she saw a silhouette standing in the shadows below. Watching, waiting, eyes glinting. Obina. He had seen everything. A chill washed through her. Tonight had changed everything. And Chinedu was finally beginning to see that the world around him was not as loyal as he believed. The silence in the mansion deepened as Nneka held her breath, pressing her back gently against the cold marble wall. She could still hear their voices, Obina's sharp, focused instructions and Obiora's cold agreement, as if the echoes were crawling through the house, searching for her. Her palms were trembling, but her mind remained alert. She knew one mistake could cost Prince's life and hers. Prince was still unconscious in his bedroom upstairs, completely unaware that the two men he trusted the most, his best friend Obina and his head security officer Obiora, were making plans to eliminate him before dawn. Nneka forced herself to move. Silent steps, steady breathing. Her heart hammered in her chest, but she could not stop. The weight of what she had overheard pushed her forward. She slipped into the narrow service corridor, her maid's uniform brushing softly against her legs. Every corner felt like danger. Every shadow felt alive. She kept her ears sharp, listening for footsteps. The distant sound of Obiora's heavy boots echoed from the direction of the main hall. They were sweeping through the house, searching for her. Nneka shut the utility door quietly and leaned her forehead against it for a moment, gathering strength. She whispered to herself, "I must save him, even if it costs me everything." The route to Prince's room was risky. The staircase leading to the east wing was openly exposed. If either of the traitors saw her, it would be over. She moved to the pantry window and pushed it gently. It opened with a soft creak. Outside, the night air was cool and carried the distant sound of waves crashing along Lekki shoreline. A small balcony connected to the east wing curved around the house. If she could climb it, she could reach Prince's room unseen. Her hands shook as she pulled herself up onto the ledge. The mansion's exterior wall rose high above her, lit by scattered security lights that created patches of brightness and deep shadows. From below, the garden rustled as the night breeze swept through the palm trees. She placed her left foot on the narrow stone ridge and held onto the railing. One slip, and she would fall straight into the rose bushes 2 floors below. She inhaled. Then she climbed. Her fingers burned from gripping the railing. and her muscles strained as she pulled herself toward the balcony outside Prince's room. Her legs scraped against the wall, but she didn't stop. She reached the ledge, swung her leg over, and landed quietly on the balcony floor. When she turned, she almost screamed. Prince was standing by the glass door, awake, his eyes half open, his face pale, confused, and frightened. "Nneka," he whispered hoarsely through the glass. She rushed to slide the door open and slipped inside. "Sir, we must leave now," she whispered urgently. Prince staggered. "What is happening? Why are you climbing the balcony at this hour?" There was no time to sugarcoat the truth. "Obinna is planning to eliminate you," she said in a trembling whisper. "Tonight." Prince froze. The world fell silent. He stared at her, disbelief and horror mixing in his eyes. "Obinna? My best friend." "Yes, sir," she answered. "I heard them discuss everything. Obiora is with him. They want the takeover to look like a natural death or an accident." Prince sank onto the edge of the bed, visibly shaken. His breathing became shallow. Sweat gathered on his forehead. Why would he do this?" he whispered. Nneka knelt beside him. "Greed, sir. The company's shares. The new contract with the foreign investors. He wants everything, and he will do anything to get it." Prince swallowed hard and wiped his face. The weight of betrayal hit him like a hammer. A man he trusted with his life, plotting to take everything, including that life. Nneka helped him stand. "We must go through the service stairwell. They will be watching the main exits." Just as she reached for his arm, a loud thud echoed from the hallway. Nneka froze. Prince's eyes widened. Another thud, then footsteps. Slow, heavy. They were coming toward the room. "Sir, hide behind the wardrobe," Nneka whispered quickly. Prince obeyed, though his hands trembled uncontrollably. Nneka slipped behind the door just as the handle rattled. Someone was trying to open it. The lock turned. The door pushed inward, and Obiora stepped inside, holding a small flashlight and a suppressed weapon. Nneka's heart almost burst out of her chest. She clamped her hand over her mouth to keep from gasping. Obiora scanned the room with the beam of his flashlight. He walked slowly, inspecting every corner. He moved toward the bed, pulled aside the curtains, then headed toward the bathroom. Every footstep he took echoed like thunder in Nneka's ears. Just a few meters away from her hiding spot, Obiora paused. He looked around again, suspicious. His gaze drifted toward the wardrobe. Nneka pressed harder against the wall behind the door. "Please don't open it. Please don't open it." Obiora took a step forward. Then another. He reached for the wardrobe handle. From the corridor, Obinna's voice called, "Obiora, leave that room. Come downstairs now." Obiora hesitated, then lowered his hand and stepped out. The door closed. Nneka let out a trembling breath she didn't know she had been holding. Prince emerged from behind the wardrobe, his chest rising and falling sharply. He sat again on the bed, fighting the urge to collapse from fear. "Nneka, you saved my life again," he whispered. She knelt gently beside him. "Sir, we are not safe yet. We must go." Prince nodded slowly. "I trust you. Whatever you say, I follow." They moved to the service exit, their steps quiet. Nneka led the way, checking corners, listening for voices or footsteps. Prince tried to keep up, though he was still weak. At the bottom of the stairwell, the emergency exit glowed faintly with red light. "We go through the garden," she whispered. "From there, we reach the back gate. I know a route the guards barely monitor." Prince squeezed her shoulder. "Lead the way." They pushed the door open. The night air rushed in. But before they could take 2 steps, a tall shadow stepped out from behind the generator house. It was Obinna. His face was calm. Too calm. His voice carried through the garden like a blade slicing the night. "Prince," he said, smiling coldly, "I knew you would try to run, and I knew she would be the one helping you." Prince froze. Nneka froze. Obinna took a slow step forward, hands in his pockets. "You disappoint me, Prince," he said softly. "After everything I planned for us." Nneka held Prince's arm tightly. Obinna's eyes moved to her. "And you, Nneka," he said with a chilling smile. "I underestimated how loyal you are." His tone shifted. "Unfortunately for both of you, loyalty is not enough to save a life tonight." Nneka stepped in front of Prince, and Obinna laughed. A slow, terrifying laugh. "Nneka, do you truly believe you can protect him?" She said nothing, but she didn't move. Prince, breathing shakily, whispered behind her, "Nneka, don't do anything foolish." Obinna stepped closer. Since you want to die protecting him, he said, I will gladly grant your wish. His hand moved into his pocket. Nneka screamed, Run. Prince hesitated. Obinna pulled out a small black device. Not a gun, a remote. He pressed a button. Behind the mansion, a car exploded, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Prince stumbled backward. Obinna smiled. This entire house, he whispered, has traps you don't know about. Nneka grabbed Prince's hand. Sir, please run. And the night erupted into chaos. The shockwave from the explosion vibrated through the ground, making the garden lights flicker violently. Smoke rose from the back of the compound, carrying the strong smell of burning fuel and twisted metal. Prince staggered, coughing, gripping Nneka's arm as debris rained lightly onto the marble tiles. Obinna didn't move. He stood calmly under the dim garden lights, his expression cold, almost satisfied, as if everything unfolding before them was nothing more than a well-executed business strategy. Nneka pulled Prince behind the tall hedge. Sir, keep your head down. But Prince didn't move immediately. His eyes were locked on Obinna, disbelief thick in his voice. How could you do this to me? You were like a brother. Obinna tilted his head, almost pitying him. Exactly, Prince. You were useful, loyal, predictable, until your father's inheritance changed everything. He took another step forward. Nneka tightened her grip on Prince's wrist. Obinna's calm voice sliced through the night. You should have signed those documents when I asked. You should have listened. Prince's face tightened. You wanted control of the offshore accounts. Obinna smiled slowly. And you refused. You thought loyalty would restrain me. The smile dropped instantly. You were wrong. Nneka's heart pounded as she dragged Prince backward through the hedges. Sir, we cannot stand here. He is buying time. Obiora will be here soon. Prince forced himself to move, his legs trembling. Where do we go? The back gate, she whispered. There is a small maintenance exit that leads to the service street. They ran. The night air whistled against their skin as they slipped between the trimmed shrubs, weaving through shadows. Behind them, Obinna's footsteps followed, slow, unhurried, confident. Nneka didn't dare look back. She pulled Prince toward the gardener's shed. This way. But just as they reached it, a flashlight beam slashed across the garden. Obiora emerged from the side path, weapon raised, scanning the darkness. Prince's breath hitched. Obiora's low voice echoed, They are here. Nneka pushed Prince against the wall of the shed. Stay behind me. Prince grabbed her wrist. No, I can't let you risk. Sir, she whispered fiercely, if you fall, everything falls. Your father's legacy, your sister's welfare, your workers, everyone depending on you. Please, let me do this. Prince's throat tightened. He had never seen this side of her. Fearless, resolute, ready to stand in front of death for him. Nneka peeked around the shed. Obiora was moving forward. Obinna appeared behind him, adjusting the cuffs of his designer shirt. In this, he said softly. Nneka's mind raced. There was only one chance. The sprinkler control panel. If she could reach it. Nneka, Prince whispered urgently. What are you thinking? She didn't answer. She darted forward. Prince's heart dropped. Nneka. Obinna's head snapped in her direction. There she is. Obiora raised his weapon. But Nneka had already reached the sprinkler panel. With shaking hands, she slammed the emergency override button. A loud click. Then, whoosh. A powerful wave of cold water burst from the garden sprinklers, spraying in all directions. The sudden jets blinded both men momentarily, soaking their clothes and fogging their vision. Obiora cursed and stumbled back, wiping his face. Nneka used the moment and screamed, Now, sir, run. Prince didn't hesitate. They sprinted through the spraying water, using the confusion as cover. Their feet pounded against the wet tiles as they made for the narrow maintenance walkway at the far corner of the compound. Behind them, Obinna shouted, Obiora, don't let them get away. The two men charged forward, slipping on the wet ground. Nneka grabbed Prince's hand. Faster, but a sudden wave of dizziness hit him. His legs buckled. Sir, she gasped, catching him before he collapsed fully. Prince's breathing was shallow. His voice was barely audible. I feel weak. Nneka's eyes widened as realization hit her. The drink, she whispered. Obinna must have put something in your water earlier. Prince's head drooped onto her shoulder. Obinna's voice echoed again, closer now. You cannot run forever. Panic clawed at Nneka's chest. Prince could barely stand. Obiora was closing in from the right. Obina from the left. They were being cornered. She scanned the area desperately. Her eyes landed on the old drainage tunnel near the wall, a narrow, rusted metal cover, half hidden by vines. It was their only chance. She knelt beside Prince, her voice trembling. "Sir, I need you to trust me. Completely." Prince nodded weakly. "I trust you with everything." She pulled the heavy metal cover aside with all her strength, her palms scraping against the rough edges until they bled. The tunnel yawned open, dark, narrow, cold. Obina's footsteps thundered closer. Nneka pulled Prince toward the opening. "Please just hold on." She lowered him carefully into the tunnel, then slipped inside after him, dragging the metal cover back into place just as Obina reached the spot. Silence. Dust. Darkness. Nneka held Prince against her chest as they crawled deeper into the tunnel. The sound of their own breathing echoed faintly around them. Above, Obina's voice carried through the garden. "Search everywhere," he barked. "Find them." Obiora's voice joined him. They couldn't have gone far. Then, Obina kicked the drainage cover. The metal rang loudly. Nneka froze, her heart thundering inside her ribs. Obina spoke again, his tone changing, calmer, more dangerous. "They are close," he said. "I can feel it." Prince whispered weakly beside her. "Nneka, I don't want to die." She pressed her forehead to his. "You will not die? Not today. Not while I still breathe." She wrapped her arms around him, holding him tightly in the dark. And they continued crawling deeper into the hidden tunnel beneath the mansion, while danger prowled above them like a wounded beast. The tunnel air grew colder as Nneka and Prince crawled deeper into the darkness. The narrow passage smelled of damp earth and old metal, its walls pressing close around them. Prince's breath was uneven and warm against her shoulder. His strength was fading quickly. Above them, muffled footsteps echoed, Obina's men spreading out across the garden, searching, sweeping, hunting. Nneka's heart raced, but she didn't stop moving. The rusted tunnel sloped downward, leading them away from the mansion. In the distance, faint rushing water echoed, a sign they were approaching the connecting point that emptied into a drainage canal behind the estate. "Nneka," Prince whispered weakly. Everything is spinning." "I know, sir," she whispered, tightening her hold on him. "Just a little more. We will be out soon." The tunnel narrowed further, forcing Nneka to crawl with one shoulder scraping the wall. She could feel the vibrations of footsteps above, like faint thunder rolling through the earth. Every sound felt too close. Every breath felt too loud. Then, a loud metallic clang slammed through the tunnel. Prince flinched violently. Nneka froze. Above them, a deep voice shouted, "Obina, we found the drainage cover on the west side. They must have entered from here." Obina's response came sharp and furious. "Open every access point. If they are underground, they have limited exits. Block them all." Nneka's breath caught in her throat. If they sealed the exits, they would be trapped. She pressed her hand against Prince's chest. "We must move faster." He nodded weakly, his voice slurred. I will try." She guided him forward, her hands brushing along the damp tunnel floor. The air grew tighter, the darkness heavier. Her knees ached from crawling, but she refused to stop. The sound of rushing water became louder. "The canal is near," she whispered. "Once we reach it, we follow it to the old service road." Prince exhaled shakily. "Nneka, how do you know all this?" "I have worked in this house for 2 years, sir," she whispered. "But I watched everything. I memorized the exits, the guards' movements, the hidden paths. I knew one day I would need them, but I didn't know it would be like this." Prince stared at her in awe. "You saved me before. You are saving me again. Why do you care so much?" Her voice trembled. "Because, sir, you are one of the few people in this world who has never treated me like I was invisible." Prince's eyes softened, but before he could speak, a blinding floodlight burst through an opening ahead, cutting through the darkness like a blade. Nneka stiffened. Shadows moved above the grated tunnel exit. Voices. Metal scraping. Obina's voice boomed, closer than before. "Check every outlet. They cannot disappear into thin air." Nneka blew out a silent breath and leaned close to Prince's ear. "They are ahead of us now," she whispered. "We must take another route." She turned toward the left side of the tunnel where the wall looked solid, except for a narrow crack, almost invisible, barely wide enough for a human hand. Prince frowned. Where are you going? Nneka reached into the crack and felt around until her fingers found an old metal latch. She pulled. A small section of the wall shifted inward with a soft groan. A hidden maintenance branch, she whispered. Only the oldest workers know about it. Prince nodded weakly. Lead the way. She helped him squeeze into the narrow opening. It was tighter and darker, but it sloped upward instead of down. Behind them, the sound of tools clanged as Obina's men worked to pry open the main grates. Nneka pushed forward, guiding Prince through the cramped passage. Dust fell on their faces. Cobwebs brushed their arms. But she didn't stop. After several minutes, the passage widened slightly, then opened into a small concrete chamber with a ladder leading upward to a metal hatch. Nneka listened carefully. Silence. She climbed first, then pushed the hatch gently. It moved. A thin crack of night air seeped in. She pushed harder and slid the hatch open. The scent of wet grass and freedom rushed in. She climbed out, then pulled Prince after her. They were behind the estate, outside the perimeter walls, standing in a quiet patch of bushland that bordered a long stretch of Lekki service road. Nneka pulled Prince into the shadows. We need to get help, sir. A hospital first. Prince leaned heavily on her shoulder. His lips were pale. Nneka, look. He pointed weakly. A pair of headlights approached from the right, moving slowly, too slowly, as though scanning the area. Nneka's blood ran cold. A black SUV. The same type Obina used. No, she whispered, pulling Prince deeper into the bushes. They're patrolling already. The SUV stopped not far from them. A door opened. Obina stepped out. He looked around calmly, then smiled. A slow, chilling smile. They are close, he said. Prince's knees buckled. Nneka held him tightly. We need to move, she whispered. Now. She helped him stumble toward the thicker trees. Their footsteps were muffled by the soft earth as they moved deeper into the darkness. Behind them, Obina's calm voice echoed through the night. Prince. Nneka, I know you can hear me. Nneka's breath hitched. Prince swallowed hard. Obina continued. You cannot run forever. I will find you. And when I do, both of you will regret ever betraying me. Nneka tightened her grip on Prince's arm. Her voice was barely a whisper. We keep moving. We don't stop. Not for anything. And together, they vanished into the silent darkness of the Lekki night, while Obina's shadows spread across the land like a net, closing in. The forest behind the estate swallowed Nneka and Prince as they stumbled through the dense undergrowth. Branches tore at their clothes and scratched their skin, but there was no time to stop and care. Every second mattered. Every heartbeat could be their last if Obina caught up. Prince's strength was nearly gone. His breaths came in short, shallow gasps. Nneka supported him under her arm, half dragging, half carrying him through the darkness. Her mind raced. Every alley, every shortcut she remembered from years working at the estate flashed before her. There had to be a safe house nearby, a place she could hide him until he recovered. Through the darkness, a faint glimmer of light caught her eye. It was just ahead, a small, abandoned shed tucked between two overgrown plots. She veered toward it, praying it was empty. Inside, the air was musty and stale, but it was shelter. Nneka helped Prince sit against the far wall. He slumped, his head tilting to one side, pale and trembling. We need to get medical help, sir, she said, checking him for injuries. His pulse was weak. She tore strips from her uniform to bind his minor scrapes and tried to stem his trembling. Suddenly, a snapping sound outside froze her in place. Twigs cracked. Leaves rustled. Someone, or something, was approaching. Stay quiet, she whispered, her heart hammering. A shadow appeared at the small window. Nneka pressed Prince back into the corner. The shadow lingered, unmoving. Then a low voice, unmistakable, called out. Prince. Nneka. Obina. Her blood ran cold. He's found us, Prince murmured, his voice weak, but steady. What do we do? Nneka's mind raced. There was no weapon, no backup, just the two of them in the dark shed. The walls themselves seemed to shrink around her. But she remembered something. A secret tunnel she had discovered years ago when cleaning the shed's floor. A small, forgotten crawl space leading under the plot, wide enough to squeeze through. She grabbed Prince's arm. This way. Quick. He tried to protest, but her determination left him no choice. Together, they crawled into the narrow tunnel. The soil was damp, the air stale, but it provided cover. Every inch they moved away from the shed meant distance from Obina. Above them, muffled voices argued. Obina's calm, sinister tone carried clearly. Obiora, they can't have gone far. Sweep every inch of the compound and the forest. I want them found tonight. Nneka pressed Prince further into the crawl space. We're not safe yet. Not even close. Minutes passed like hours. Every sound above made her flinch. Finally, the crawl space sloped upward. Nneka climbed first, then helped Prince behind her. When they emerged, it was near an abandoned service road, overgrown but passable. Nneka scanned the area. No lights. No vehicles. Nothing moving. She exhaled. Finally, they had a moment of silence, a temporary reprieve. Sir, we need to get somewhere safe, she whispered. I know a place not far from here, someone I trust. We can recover, regroup, and plan our next move. Prince nodded, leaning heavily against her. Nneka, you've saved my life more than once tonight. I don't even know how to thank you. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Just stay alive, sir. That's enough. A sudden sound, a vehicle engine roaring, shattered the moment. Obina. The SUV had found the service road. The headlights cut through the darkness, moving fast. Nneka grabbed Prince and pulled him deeper into the underbrush. They stumbled, nearly falling multiple times, but kept moving. Obina's voice drifted across the distance. They can't hide forever. Come on, Obiora. Don't let them escape. The SUV's engine roared closer. Nneka spotted an old drainage ditch leading away from the road. She dove in with Prince, dragging him down into the shallow trench. Mud and water soaked them, but it provided cover. The vehicle slowed to a crawl above them. Obina stepped out, scanning. His silhouette loomed menacingly, cold, unstoppable. Nneka pressed herself against the ditch wall. We need to move silently. They'll never suspect we'll head toward the creek. Prince's lips were pale. Nneka, if we make it out tonight, I swear, I'll never doubt your loyalty. Her jaw tightened. We make it out tonight. That's all that matters. The SUV's lights swept past. Obina's laugh echoed, a terrifying, calculated sound. Then the vehicle accelerated away. Nneka and Prince waited, their bodies shivering from adrenaline and cold water. Once they were certain the coast was clear, she whispered, We keep moving. No stopping. Not until we reach the other side of Lekki. That's when we can truly plan to stop him. Prince nodded weakly, his trust absolute despite exhaustion. And together, they disappeared into the shadows of the night, hunted, betrayed, but not defeated. Above them, Obina's presence lingered, a silent promise that the chase was far from over. The Lekki nights swallowed their footsteps as the first faint signs of dawn began to break through the horizon. Some battles were fought in the light. But tonight, survival was fought in the shadows. The first light of dawn struggled through the thick haze over Lekki, painting the city in muted gold and gray. The streets were quiet, eerily so, as though the world itself was holding its breath after the night's chaos. But beneath that calm, danger lurked. For Prince and Nneka, the night's events were not behind them. They were only beginning to run toward a peril that could claim them at any moment. Nneka led Prince through the narrow alleys that twisted between abandoned warehouses and forgotten service roads. His head leaned against her shoulder, pale and weak, the adrenaline that had carried him through the night now ebbing into exhaustion. Every few steps, she would glance over her shoulder, expecting to see Obina's SUV tearing through the streets. But it was not there, yet the thought of it sent chills down her spine. Sir, we need to keep moving, Nneka whispered, her voice tight with urgency. We have to reach the old safe house before he figures out where we went. Prince nodded silently, too tired to speak. His mind replayed every moment of betrayal. Obina, his trusted friend, standing over him, plotting his death, the explosion at the mansion, the way Nneka had risked herself to save him. The weight of it all was crushing, yet he clung to her presence like a lifeline. As they rounded the corner, a distant engine sound cut through the morning quiet. Nneka's eyes snapped toward it. Obina's SUV, moving fast, scanning the streets. They found us, she whispered, her grip on Prince's arm tightening. We have to split. I'll draw them away, get you to safety. Prince shook his head. No, I'm not letting you risk yourself alone again. We do this together. Her heart pounded at his words. She wanted to argue, to insist he go ahead, but she knew he was right. Running together gave them a better chance. They ducked into a narrow corridor between two industrial buildings, shadows swallowing them. The engine behind them roared closer, then slowed as Obina and Obiora's voices echoed through the metal streets. Check every street. They cannot have gone far. Obina barked. They're clever, Obiora muttered. But they're cornered now. Nneka's pulse raced. Cornered, but not defeated. She led Prince toward a hidden staircase she remembered from her years cleaning the warehouses, a service stairwell that led to the rooftops. It was a dangerous path, but it offered height and cover. The stairs creaked under their weight as they ascended, dust and rust falling like rain around them. Nneka glanced back. The SUV had stopped below. Obina's figure could be seen briefly as he surveyed the area, scanning. The man's patience was terrifying, every movement calculated, cold, inevitable. On the rooftop, the city stretched before them, a jagged line of buildings bathed in the first pale light of morning. Nneka guided Prince along the narrow ledges, her hands gripping his to prevent him from slipping. Every step was a gamble, but each brought them further from the immediate threat below. Suddenly, a sound from the adjacent building made them freeze. A shadow moved across the rooftop, next door. Obina's silhouette appeared, climbing the fire escape with ease, his movements confident, unhurried, like a predator closing in on its prey. Prince's hand trembled in hers. Nneka, what now? She pressed a finger to her lips. We keep moving. We use the rooftops. We can reach the main road, and then we disappear into the city. Once we reach the old safe house, we plan our next move. We survive, no matter what. Obina reached the edge of the building, scanning. His eyes caught theirs for the briefest second, a cold, piercing glare. And then he smiled. It was a smile devoid of warmth, a smile that promised retribution, control, and danger beyond anything they had imagined. Run, Prince, Nneka whispered fiercely. Run with me. They sprinted across the narrow rooftops, leaping from one building to the next, wind tearing at their hair and clothes. Below, the city began to awaken, but unaware of the life-and-death chase unfolding above it. Obina followed, each step precise, every leap landing with terrifying control. Nneka realized something in that moment. He had done this before. This agility, this methodical hunt. Prince stumbled once, and Nneka caught him. No, we can't stop now, she hissed, dragging him forward. Above, the sun's rays began piercing through the clouds, illuminating the city's edges. It was a cruel reminder that light brings clarity and danger. Obina's shadow moved in sync with theirs, relentless, unstoppable. Finally, they reached a narrow alley connecting to a service road. Nneka led Prince down the dark path, hoping to lose Obina in the maze of early morning traffic. But even as they ran, she knew the confrontation was inevitable. Somewhere ahead, decisions would have to be made, decisions that could cost lives. And Nneka knew, deep in her heart, that Prince's survival, and her own, depended on what they did next. The service road narrowed as Nneka guided Prince through the shadows. Every footstep echoed. Every car passing sent sparks of panic through them. Prince's breaths came in shallow, irregular gasps, his exhaustion obvious. Nneka's own muscles screamed from the rooftops sprint and repeated leaps across buildings. Yet she forced herself to keep moving. Almost there, she whispered. Just a few more turns, and we reach the alley that leads to the creek. From there, we can hide until the city wakes fully. Obina won't follow us there. It's too narrow for his SUV. Prince's head drooped. Nneka, I don't think I can keep going. Sir, listen to me, she said, her voice sharp, cutting through the fear. If we stop now, we die. If we keep moving, we live. That's the only choice. He nodded weakly, drawing on the last vestiges of strength he had. His hand clutched hers tightly. Together, they pressed forward, slipping into the shadowed alley. But the faint echo of footsteps behind them sent a shiver down Nneka's spine. Obina's voice called out, calm, measured, yet laced with menace. Prince, Nneka, I know you're here. You can't escape me. You never could. The words were like ice in Nneka's veins. They were precise, calculated, full of control. He was not panicking. He never panicked. That made him even more dangerous. The alley curved sharply, leading them toward a narrow footbridge over a shallow drainage canal. Nneka scanned the surroundings, estimating their chance to cross safely. The bridge was old, wooden, and partially collapsed in spots, but it was their only route. "Sir, we have to run across the bridge," she whispered. "It's narrow, but it's our only chance." Prince nodded. He followed her, moving cautiously, each step bringing a painful strain to his legs. Nneka moved ahead, testing the boards with her foot. The wood groaned, but held. They were halfway across when a sudden shout echoed from behind. "Stop!" Obinna appeared at the edge of the alley, his silhouette framed by the rising sun. Obiora flanked him, their presence like a wall cutting off any easy escape. Prince froze, fear gripping him. "Nneka!" She pressed herself against him. "Keep moving. Don't stop. Trust me." The bridge swayed under their weight. Nneka's heart pounded. One misstep would be catastrophic. One wrong move, and Prince would fall into the canal below, or worse, into Obinna's hands. Obinna took a slow step forward. "Do you really think I'll let you escape?" His eyes glimmered with cold calculation. "I have given everything for this empire, and I will not watch it slip away because of a maid's loyalty." Nneka's jaw tightened. She could feel the anger and desperation radiating from him, but also the terrifying composure of a man who believed he was untouchable. Prince's hand trembled. "I can't." "You can," Nneka said firmly. "I won't let you die. Not like this." She grabbed his hand, tightened her grip, and whispered, "Jump with me." The bridge creaked under their combined weight as they prepared. Obinna took another step forward. "You're fools to think you can survive this." Nneka counted in her mind. 3 steps to the edge. 2. 1. "Now," she shouted. They leapt. Time slowed. Prince's arms wrapped around Nneka instinctively as they fell. The wooden boards of the bridge groaned and splintered. Water splashed beneath them. They landed heavily but safely in the shallow drainage canal, the sudden cold water knocking the wind out of them. Obinna's furious shout echoed from above. "Obiora! They've jumped!" Nneka dragged Prince forward through the water, moving as silently and quickly as possible. Their clothes were soaked, their bodies chilled, but the canal offered cover. The sounds of the city waking up and distant traffic masked their escape. Above, Obinna and Obiora scanned the edge of the canal, frustration evident in their movements. Obinna's hands clenched into fists. "They are clever," he said coldly, "but cleverness will not save them." Nneka kept moving, pressing Prince against her shoulder as they navigated the drainage canal toward the thick overgrowth that led to an abandoned warehouse, a location she knew from years of service work at the estate. "This way, sir," she whispered, her voice a mix of urgency and determination. "Once we reach the warehouse, we can hide until the city is fully awake. Then, we plan our counter." Prince nodded weakly, his eyes half closed. "Nneka, you saved me again." Her jaw tightened. "Not again. Always. And this time, we end this." For the first time that night, Nneka allowed herself a glimpse of hope. They were still alive, still free, for now. But above them, the city lights began to illuminate the streets, and with every passing second, Obinna's relentless hunt drew closer. And Nneka knew the true test was just beginning. The warehouse emerged through the morning haze like a fortress of shadow and rusted metal. Nneka led Prince across the overgrown yard, careful to avoid loose planks and broken glass. The building had been abandoned for years, but she knew it like the back of her hand. The narrow service entrances, the hidden rooms, the thick wooden crates that could provide cover. Prince stumbled, his legs weak, and Nneka caught him instantly. "Almost there, sir. Keep moving," she urged, her voice low, urgent. They slipped through a side entrance she had memorized, a narrow door, partly hidden behind stacked crates. Inside, the air was stale, filled with dust, and the faint smell of mildew, but it was sanctuary. For the first time since fleeing the mansion, Nneka allowed herself to breathe. Prince sank against a pile of crates, closing his eyes. I don't know how much longer I could have held on," he admitted, voice hoarse. Nneka knelt beside him, her hand brushing wet hair from his face. "You're alive now. That's what matters. Rest for a moment. We can't plan if you collapse." They were silent for a heartbeat, the world outside momentarily forgotten. But the peace was fragile. Nneka's ears twitched at a distant sound, the faint rumble of tires on the service road, the unmistakable growl of an engine. "Obinna, he's coming," she whispered, standing and moving toward a high window. Through the grime, she could see the SUV making its way toward the warehouse. Obiora was beside him, scanning the perimeter. Prince struggled to stand. "We can't keep running forever," he said, his voice trembling. We have to fight back." Nneka's eyes sharpened. "Yes, but we fight smart. We lure him here, into a place we control. That's our advantage. You can't fight him head-on. He's stronger, faster, prepared. But here, we can use the environment." Prince nodded weakly, determination flickering in his eyes despite exhaustion. "I trust you, Nneka. Lead the way." They moved through the maze of crates, silently barricading doors and creating narrow passageways. Nneka's mind raced, thinking through every step. She needed to slow Obina down, to force him into their trap, to use his confidence against him. Outside, the engine stopped. Obina's voice carried clearly through the morning air. "They're here somewhere. Search the building carefully. They cannot escape." Obiora muttered beside him. "It's empty, sir. Maybe they doubled back." "Don't speak," Obina snapped, stepping into the warehouse with precise control. "They're close. I can feel it." Obiora flanked the left side. "They have nowhere to run." Nneka pressed Prince against the crates, holding him still. "Sir, listen. Follow my lead. One wrong move, and he kills us both." Prince nodded, his grip on her hand firm despite weakness. Obina's boots clicked against the concrete floor, methodical, confident. His shadow stretched long across the warehouse, and every step he took was deliberate, predatory. Nneka whispered, "We have one shot. When I give the signal, run through the crates to the left corner. I'll create a diversion. Trust me." Prince's lips tightened. "I trust you, Nneka. Always." The sound of metal scraping echoed behind them as Obiora checked another room. Nneka tensed. The moment was coming. "Now," she hissed. She slammed a crate to the ground, sending a loud crash reverberating through the warehouse. Dust erupted from the ceiling beams. Obina's head snapped toward the noise. "There," he roared. Prince ran, stumbling through the narrow path Nneka had cleared, weaving between crates. Nneka stayed behind, dodging behind a stack of wooden pallets and grabbing a length of chain she had found earlier. Obina moved quickly, too quickly. The air filled with the sound of pursuit, his breathing controlled, his steps relentless. Nneka swung the chain, knocking over crates to block his path, buying Prince precious seconds. The trap was set. The path ahead funneled him exactly where they needed him. Prince reached the left corner, where Nneka had prepared a hidden exit, an emergency door leading out to a side street. He slipped through just as Obina smashed through the barricade of crates, rage twisting his features. And then Nneka, facing Obina alone for the first time, drew a deep breath. She was terrified, but she was ready. She would do whatever it took to keep Prince alive. Obina stepped closer, his expression calm but deadly. "Impressive," he said. "But this ends now." Nneka's hands tightened around the chain. Her jaw was set. "No, it doesn't end tonight. Not while he lives." The warehouse became a battlefield of strategy and survival, a test of courage, wit, and endurance. Every movement counted, every misstep could be fatal. Obina lunged, and the trap she had set sprang into action. Obina's boots slammed against the scattered crates, sending a spray of dust and splinters into the air. His eyes burned with fury, but Nneka didn't flinch. Every nerve in her body screamed, but her focus was absolute. Prince had reached the exit and was already slipping into the alley beyond. Now, it was her turn to hold the line. She pulled the chain taut, yanking a heavy crate that had been precariously balanced on a stack. It crashed down with a deafening clang, creating a wall of wood and debris. Obina's momentum carried him forward, and for the first time that night, he stumbled. Nneka pressed her advantage, swinging the chain toward him, forcing him to backtrack. "You won't stop us," she shouted, voice echoing through the warehouse. "Not tonight." Obina's expression shifted from surprise to controlled anger. He recovered quickly, leaping over the fallen crate with terrifying agility. "Bold," he said coldly, "but foolish. You cannot win." She pressed on, using every obstacle in the warehouse to slow him down. Crates, pallets, even loose cables. The environment was her ally. Every step he took toward her was calculated, but she had the advantage of planning. Every corner, every hidden path, had been memorized in advance. Obiora's voice came from behind, shouting instructions, but Nneka ignored it. She had only one focus: delay Obina long enough for Prince to reach safety. Obina lunged again, and Nneka sidestepped, letting him crash into a stack of crates that toppled onto the concrete floor with a deafening roar. The impact rattled the walls and sent clouds of dust billowing. For a heartbeat, she allowed herself a flicker of hope. Then he roared, a sound full of rage and disbelief. He wasn't used to being challenged, to being delayed. His pride and fury fueled him, making him even more dangerous. Nneka's muscles burned, but she didn't stop. She maneuvered through the warehouse like a shadow, leading him into the section she had prepared. At the far end, a trapdoor concealed under dust and crates waited. She had uncovered it earlier, knowing that if push came to shove, this would be their escape route. Obina's shadow loomed closer. Enough games, he spat, his voice venomous. You cannot hide forever. Nneka's hand touched the trapdoor. She lifted it silently, ducking inside just as Obina lunged past the spot. The crate she had rigged for delay clattered behind him, and he cursed, realizing too late that he had been misled. Inside the cramped space, Nneka pressed herself against the wall, listening as Obina and Obiora searched the warehouse frantically. Their voices were loud now, desperate. Obina's control was cracking. He barked commands, frustrated by the traps and dead ends she had left in his path. Prince emerged from the alley outside, moving cautiously toward the safe house she had identified earlier. His eyes widened as he saw Nneka climb out through the hidden exit. You did it, he whispered, awe and relief flooding his voice. Nneka extended a hand, and he took it firmly. We're not safe yet, she said, glancing over her shoulder. Obina will regroup. But for now, we survived. They moved quickly through the side streets, keeping to shadows, avoiding traffic and early pedestrians. The city was waking, but they remained invisible, ghosts among the waking world. Behind them, the warehouse remained a trap for Obina. By the time he had cleared the debris, Nneka and Prince were already gone. His fury was palpable, but he knew he had been outsmarted. For the first time, the unshakable control he wielded over everyone around him faltered. Nneka guided Prince to the hidden safe house, an abandoned but structurally sound building she had used during her years of service work. Once inside, she locked the reinforced doors and windows, barricading them with old furniture and crates. Prince sank to the floor, breathing heavily. I can't believe we made it, he murmured. Nneka knelt beside him, pressing a hand to his shoulder. We did. And now we plan. We finish this before he can try again. Obina won't give up so easily. But he's human. He can make mistakes. And we'll use that. Outside, Lekki was stirring with the first signs of normal life. But for Nneka and Prince, the city had become a battlefield. Survival had been won, but the war was far from over. The safe house was quiet now, a temporary sanctuary, but both knew that Obina's shadow loomed over every street, every alley, every corner. The hunt was not over. And for the first time, Prince looked at Nneka not just with gratitude, but with awe. I owe you everything, he said softly. Nneka shook her head. No, we owe each other survival. And tonight, we survived together. But deep down, both knew. This was only the beginning of a reckoning that would change everything. The safe house was silent, but the tension inside was suffocating. Prince sat against the wall, exhausted but alert, his eyes following Nneka as she moved cautiously through the space, checking every barricade and corner. The weight of the night's events hung heavy over them: betrayal, survival, and the knowledge that Obina would not stop until he got what he wanted. We can't wait here forever, Prince said, his voice low but determined. He'll come back, and next time, we might not be this lucky. Nneka nodded. I know. That's why we need a plan. Obina thrives on control. He underestimates people who fight smart, who fight together. And that's exactly what we'll do. Hours passed as they prepared. Using the warehouse layout in her mind, Nneka organized traps and escape routes, turning every crate, beam, and shadow into a potential advantage. Prince recovered slightly, regaining enough strength to participate. The roles were clear. Nneka's intelligence and agility complemented Prince's resolve and courage. Together, they were no longer victims, they were hunters. As night fell again over Lekki, The distant rumble of Obina's SUV echoed through the streets. He had returned, more cautious, more calculating. He circled the neighborhood, scouring every corner. But this time he was walking into a carefully orchestrated trap. Obina's shadow stretched across the entrance as he approached the safe house. He kicked the door, expecting resistance, expecting fear. Instead, he found silence, and that silence unnerved him. He stepped inside cautiously, only to trigger the first of Nneka's traps. Crates toppled from above, sending a cacophony of wood crashing down behind him, cutting off his retreat. Prince emerged from the shadows, blocking Obina's path with a makeshift barricade of crates and debris. "It ends tonight, Obina," he said, his voice steady, filled with a newfound authority. Obina's eyes blazed, his calm composure finally cracking. "You dare defy me? After everything I've done for you, everything I've given you, everything you've taken?" Nneka interjected, stepping forward, her voice fierce. "Your greed, your betrayal, it ends now." Obina lunged, but the narrow layout and traps slowed him. Chains, overturned crates, and hidden ropes forced him into a corner, his movements restricted. For the first time, he realized that Prince and Nneka were no longer afraid. They were prepared, unified, and unrelenting. Prince stepped forward. "You underestimated loyalty, Obina. You thought money and power could control everyone. But some things, some people, cannot be bought or broken." Obina roared in fury, swinging wildly. But each strike was anticipated, each move countered. Nneka's agility and Prince's determination created a seamless defense. Finally, with a well-timed maneuver, Obina tripped over a loose beam Nneka had prepared earlier. He fell hard onto the concrete floor, dazed and immobilized. The fight was over. Obiora, who had been watching in stunned silence from the shadows, hesitated, realizing the tide had turned. Without his leader's command, he fled, leaving Obina trapped and powerless. Prince approached Obina, his eyes cold but composed. "You wanted control, Obina. You wanted power over everyone. But control isn't given, it's earned. And loyalty cannot be forced." Nneka stepped beside Prince, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder. "You lost because you relied on fear. We survived because we relied on each other." Obina struggled weakly, but it was useless. The two of them had outsmarted him. His empire of manipulation had crumbled in a single night, undone by courage, strategy, and loyalty he had never understood. Silence filled the warehouse. The threat was over. The night's terror had passed, replaced by an uneasy calm. Prince and Nneka stood together, bruised, battered, but unbroken. Prince looked at Nneka, gratitude and admiration shining in his eyes. "I owe you more than my life. I owe you everything." Nneka shook her head, a small smile breaking through her exhaustion. "You owe me nothing, sir. Just promise me one thing. Never forget that loyalty, courage, and trust are stronger than greed and betrayal." Prince nodded. "I promise." As dawn broke over Lekki once more, Prince and Nneka stepped out of the safe house. The city looked ordinary, peaceful even, but they knew the truth. The night had changed everything. They had faced betrayal, death, and danger, but they had survived. Together, they were stronger. And while Obina's shadow would linger in memory, he would never threaten them again. For the first time in weeks, Nneka allowed herself to breathe freely. Survival had been won, justice had been delivered, and a bond forged in peril now stood unbreakable. The city awoke around them, oblivious to the battle that had raged in the shadows. But Nneka and Prince knew the world had shifted. They had faced the darkness, and they had emerged victorious. And this time, nothing could stop them. And so, Nneka's courage saved her boss from a deadly betrayal, reminding us that true heroism can come from the most unexpected places. Every choice, every risk, teaches us a lesson about trust, bravery, and the power of hope. If this story made your heart race, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another epic African folktale. Tell us in the comments, what would you have done if you were in Nneka's shoes? Stay with spiritual African stories, and together, we'll uncover even more suspense, courage, and secrets in Africa's greatest folktales. The next story could change everything. Don't miss it.